Hey everybody in TCB Radio Network land, it's Krista and I'm back with another celebrity interview today. He doesn't know yet that he's a celebrity, and those are the best kind. But I am here with an absolute expert, Elvis historian on memorabilia. He will knock you out with the stuff that he knows, and I'm really honored actually that you chose me to choose, to share what you have, our platform.
Oh, I enjoy
because
doing that.
this is special, you guys. He hasn't done this anywhere else. And he's absolutely the expert on Elvis Scarves, on so much Elvis, but you really have a passion for the scarves. That's kind of where life has led you.
I love Elvis.
In the collector kind of thing. So explain to everybody who you are and what you mean to Graceland. Why are we here today?
Well, my name is Michael Kurosky. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. I've been a collector since I was very young, probably 9 or 10 years old, and got into brokering, buying and selling Elvis. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I started doing business with Graceland Authenticated. And I'm here for the auction and the RSVP because I have about 18 lots going up for auction tomorrow.
So your pieces are going into the Graceland auction.
Yes.
It's really cool, right? It's exciting.
It is exciting.
And it's not the first time.
No, I think this is auction number probably 13 for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, even Graceland recognizes Mike as the scarf expert, and they get the rare stuff from him. He knows all about it. And today, he's going to give us all a scarf education with actual examples. Oh, I can't believe I'm in the same room this close to this stuff that Elvis actually signed, touched, sweated on, and he's going to explain each one to us.
Yes.
So we're really looking forward to it. Let's get started.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have an example of every top scarf that Elvis wore, but I do have 4 examples. The first scarf that Elvis wore on stage was made by IC Costume Company, and they're the same company that made his stage outfits. And they were silk scarves, pure silk scarves, and he wore those from '69 through Aloha from Hawaii. And like I said, unfortunately, I don't have one with me. But after Aloha from Hawaii, Elvis went back to Vegas about 2 weeks later and did his engagement from January through February of 1973. And he started getting his scarves from a different vendor. It was called Mr. Guy out of Las Vegas, and he was like a clothing specialty shop. These scarves were also pure silk, but they were made just a little bit different than the early scarves. They had different hemming on them, and they weren't quite as thin as the early silk scarves, but they're actually more rare than the first scarves because he only used these from January of '73 through October of '73 before they started going to a polyester blend. So these are actually, we call this the interim scarf, in between the first one and then the polyester is how we got the name.
Amazing.
So this is from his January engagement in Las Vegas, January '73.
And this is actual silk.
Yes, these are still the true silk before they went to polyester.
Amazing. And can you share your source, where you originally got this from?
No.
Okay, it's a secret. Yeah. So this is the first one, and you would never know. You know, it's a beautiful silk scarf. It doesn't have a signature on it. Mike knows the whole history and the reason why Elvis started giving out scarves in the first place. So I wanted you to share that too, like how it all started.
Well, as the story goes, he was in Phoenix in 1970, and it was his first U.S. tour after coming back to the live stage. And of course, I found the story on Google, but apparently during the concert, he was down there mingling with the fans, and either the lady pulled it off his neck or he gave it to her, you know, and so that's where it started. You know how Elvis was. Once he knew that his fans liked something, he would run it in the ground. Now, it's important to note that during this time, Elvis was not giving away the amount of scarves that he gave away later. The early silk scarves, when he did start giving them away, it was usually only 1 per show. And then we start seeing him gradually give away more. Through 72, 73, he's probably given away a couple. But it wasn't until he started wearing the polyester scarves and the signature scarves that we start seeing him increasing his generosity with the scarves. And then by 76, 77, you can actually see him give away as many as 30, 35 scarves per show.
It's just something that really caught on. I think in the beginning he was wearing them, and it was like an afterthought. Let me go ahead and leave this person, you know, a souvenir, and then it became a whole thing, a whole marketing thing because of, you know.
And it's, you know, it's really odd, but over the last decade in the Elvis collecting world, we're kind of in this mode where everybody wants signature scarves. All scarves are collectible, and if you're a collector, they should all be desirable. However, the signature scarves are the most common, and I think for some reason people have this comfort level that because his name is printed on it, that makes it real, but it does not. Because there are forgeries, there are remakes, bootlegs, whatever you want to call them. The non-signature scarves should be the most desirable scarf because they're more rare, especially the silk ones, because there's very few of those floating
That's
around.
fascinating. Who would have ever thought? Yeah. So a scarf like this with no signature, no initials, is going to be more valuable than one that has them, only because
it should be.
They're more rare.
They are to me as a collector.
Yes,
I mean,
they're more
anytime
rare.
I get my hands on a true silk non-signature or even a polyester non-signature, I feel more grateful because they're so much more rare than the signature scarves. But they're all collectible. I love them all. But you know, it seems like over the last few years, the position of these scarves have flip-flopped, and the newcomers coming to the table have this feeling that if his signature's not on it, it's not real, and that is very untrue.
Wow, we would have never known. Right here for you guys.
And of course, another fallacy is that it should say Sincerely Elvis on the scarf, but that's untrue as well. Even though most of his souvenirs would say Thank You Elvis or Sincerely Elvis, whether it be posters or tour books or promotional items, the scarf should only say Elvis Presley. If it says Sincerely Elvis Presley, then it's a remake, a bootleg, a souvenir, or something like that.
Okay, we're going to get to more on that towards the end.
So
What's the next one you got there?
After Elvis did his Las Vegas engagement in '73, which was in July, August, he took the fall off. He would normally do a fall tour, but he did not do a fall tour because he was involved with his divorce from Priscilla. So we found Elvis back on the road in early '74, and when he came back, he started wearing polyester scarves that were non-signature. This would be an example of the type of scarf that he first started wearing. Now this one's actually from '75, not '74, but it's pretty much the same thing that he would have been wearing in early '74. And as you see, there is no pre-printed signature on it. And even though it's not silk, it's a polyester blend. And you can either have 4 sides hemmed, sometimes it would be 3 sides hemmed. It depends on where it came off the roll of fabric, you know, from the vendor that they ordered them from.
Wow. And
This
it's
one's
a big square. Look at how big this is.
This one's actually signed. It's from Dallas, 1975. Yeah.
Has his signature on it because he signed it himself with his own hand. It wasn't pre-printed on there. But I'm just amazed at the size of this, how big this is.
And Elvis and the Colonel used multiple vendors. A lot of people feel like, or they're under the understanding that Opportunity Village supplied Elvis all of his scarves. That's very untrue. He had multiple vendors. So the very first scarves, the silk scarves, were IC Costume, as we spoke about earlier, that made the jumpsuits. Then you had Mr. Guy that made the interim scarf. And then from there you had Phil Efron, you had Opportunity Village that supplied some of them, and some were even ordered from Korea.
Wow.
And they would mix in and out. It wasn't like, okay, well, he never used this style. Some scarves he never used again, but some kind of reappeared. They used them, then they would go to a different one, and then the other ones would come back. So they had multiple vendors.
Look at the sewing. I mean, they used a blue thread. They didn't even try to match.
And that's even more rare.
Amazing.
You know, this is the only scarf I've had that's polyester like this, non-signature, that has a different color hem than the rest of the scarf. It's truly a very rare scarf.
Didn't go buy a thread that matched.
And to find a rose-colored scarf is extremely hard. Wow. You'll see pictures of him. There are quite a few in the May-June tours of '75 wearing the rose ones. But in all my years of doing this is the only rose scarf I've ever had in my hand.
And
I've never known anybody that had a rose-colored scarf.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah. Don't ask. They're not for sale. I bet. I don't know. I can't see the comments. Maybe Janet, if you. But none of these are for sale. Just so you guys know. But this is fascinating. I hope the camera's picking up this blue
So this
thread.
type of scarf would have been most likely made by Phil Efron. So a lot of people know the name Phil Efron because there were some scarves that came out after Elvis's death that you could buy with a certificate of authenticity. The certificate had a number stamped on it. They also stamped it in dye on the scarf. Those were scarves that when Elvis died, Phil Efron had on order, on back order. And after Elvis died, he's like, well, what do we do with all these scarves? I actually spoke to his widow last year. So they came up with the idea, let's put, you know, certificates of authenticity with them and let's sell them. Okay. But prior to that, he had been one of the vendors that offered these scarves to Elvis to wear on stage. Just
because they were on their way to him. He never touched them, saw them, but they were meant for him.
Yeah. So they're true Elvis scarves, that he just never wore them versus these that he did.
Wow, it's just so interesting. And the rose is really rare, and I wonder why that is.
There was just certain colors that he would wear for, depending on the jumpsuits he was wearing at the time, maybe, and different things.
Right?
Not always. You know, in the early days when he was wearing these silk scarves from IC Costume, I don't think I've ever seen a picture where the scarf didn't match the pleats in the jumpsuit. Sometimes you'd have the little circles here and it'd have the silk in it and it'd match that. But later on, he did start doing some mixing and matching. And then really when you get late in the game, it seemed like nearly everything you wore was water blue. The color started going away and got pretty standard. It was rare to see various colors in the later years because white and blue went in just about anything you wore.
Yeah, and he loved, those are his two favorite colors, I think.
But after 75, it wasn't as colorful.
Okay.
75 was a very colorful year in scarves for Elvis.
This is amazing. I can't believe I'm holding this right now. This is so cool.
So in March of 74, we have newspaper articles and evidence of when the first signature scarves came in. However, the first signature scarves he actually didn't wear. They were sold at the stands. In March of 74, they started selling, the article states Colonial Mansion White, I think, or Mansion Colonial White and Baby Blue. This is an example of what they would have been selling at the stand. But then later he did incorporate these into his stage act. However, before he did that, the very first signature scarves that he wore actually had a round edge. And these first appeared on the June tour in 1974, actually in my hometown of Fort Worth, is where I've traced it back that the first time that he actually wore the round edge signature scarves. The round edge signature scarves were never sold at the stand. So anytime you get one like this, it's a real scarf. You don't have to worry about it being a souvenir. And I don't have the alternate version of this scarf, but at one point, instead of it being silk screen, because you really can't feel that, it's just, there was actually a version where it was stamped with more of like a rubbery material, and you can actually feel it. It's like a raised lettering, and those are extremely rare. He did not use them very long.
Is this a silk screen?
I think silk screen is what you would call that.
Okay.
I think.
Wow. So see, can you see the edges? How it's different? It's not like a regular square.
And this one even exhibits, you can see the splatter of sweat here.
He wore this one?
Yeah.
His sweat was right.
Yeah, you can see it all over it. There were some really big drops on one corner right here.
This one here?
You can see these big drops here all over it from where he wore it. Wiped his face with it.
Isn't that amazing?
So these were the first signature scarves with the round edge, and then later he did incorporate this square edge scarf into the show. And then your question is, well, how do I determine one that was sold at the stand from one that he wore? It's not always easy. The story of the person you're buying it from. Does it exhibit any makeup or sweat stains at all? Most of the ones that I've identified to be souvenir scarves were like perfect and totally mint. Looked like they'd never even been unfolded. That's usually going to be one that was probably sold at the stand. Whereas this one, we have strips of, you can see the sweat and makeup all in this scarf.
But you had to be really careful because I can imagine anybody could sweat or put makeup on it and then say it was Elvis.
That's hard to.
It's
it
the
takes
source.
it takes decades for that to set in like that and be like that, and that's why that's why I highly recommend that you buy from Graceland Authenticated, because their authenticators here are awesome. They have great integrity, unlike some of the other auction houses. Graceland's not going to list anything that's questionable. And most auctions, when they sell something, even if they find out during the auction that's fake, they go ahead and sell it. You've seen Graceland take auctions down because they got information at the last minute that it was questionable. Even if they couldn't prove the fact, they don't even want a question mark about it.
Wow.
They'll take it down. So they have really good authenticators that they can tell that these stains are vintage and not coffee stains or something like that somebody decided to ground into it. So it's hard to fake that on material.
There's a little bit of, this is probably mascara right here, eyeliner or something.
It could be. I've had several. I have two in the auction tomorrow. One has mascara all over it. The Vegas 74, it's got the VIP invite, and you can see where he wiped his eyes with it. And then the Roanoke 76, I think, has something like 28 original snapshots taken right up close to the stage.
This is
really awesome
amazing.
items.
Absolutely amazing. So hope you guys can see that. We're gonna get lots of pictures of these as well for the blog for you.
But just to help the young people out there that's getting into this, You know, if it says Sincerely Elvis, it's not a real scarf. If the scarf is long and skinny, it's not a real scarf.
Unless he signed it himself, Sincerely Elvis Presley.
Yeah,
like
if he
that
signed
one.
it like that one, it's different.
Yeah.
But if it says Sincerely, if it's silk screen like this,
printed on there.
it's probably something they sold at the Graceland shops, you know, or something that came from overseas.
Okay, so that's a real quick way to spot a fake if you're out there in the market and want to buy one of these beautiful things. Thank you so much. Oh
Glad
my
to do it.
goodness. And definitely you can reach out to Mark if you have any questions about anything. He'll get back to you. He's super sweet, as you can tell. And do you want to tell everybody how to get in touch with you, or email?
My email is mike.kurosky@yahoo.com. That's mike.kurosky@yahoo.com.
Or just leave me a comment, you know, a question in the comments, and we'll make sure to relay it to Mike for you. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge with us. This has been such an honor to be here sharing this with you. Thanks for choosing our platform. And we'll be back, you guys, later on. We'll have more with Mike today, so make sure you stay tuned.